So in my previous video, I mentioned that I went out and I bought the Oculus Quest. So I've had it for around about 2 weeks now. And as a user who's fairly new to VR, I wanted to give you my initial thoughts. So my previous experience to VR was limited to the Samsung Gear, which is just something you got free with Samsung phones back in the day. You could plug your phone into it. It came with a simple controller, one-handed one that would allow you just to do simple browsing, maybe watch the movies and play some pretty basic App Store games. However, I can safely say for the Samsung Gear, after a few uses rendered my phone too hot to actually hold, I decided I no longer wanted to strap that thing to my face. Luckily, it wasn't a Galaxy Note. So I wanted to preposition this review by first asking the question, who exactly is the Oculus Quest for? So with a price tag of $399, I'm pretty sure that's the same for both UK pounds and US dollars. And the Oculus Quest's completely wireless design, which means it no longer needs to be tethered to a gaming PC or the use of external sensors to track your motion. I would safely say for new VR users that Oculus Quest hits a nice kind of middle ground between the cheaper end of the Samsung Gear, the Google Cardboard, and the high-end expensive tethered solutions such as the Valve Index or the Vive Pro. So what exactly are you getting for $399? Well, the Oculus Quest has basically a smartphone built into it, which uses a Qualcomm 835, has 4 gigs of RAM, and has 1440 by 1600 resolution per eyepiece, which uses a dual OLED Pentile display system. Nailed it. So one of the limiting features of the Oculus Quest compared to some other headsets available is its refresh rate. The Oculus Quest has a refresh rate of 72 Hertz compared to some more expensive models which come with kind of 90 Hertz or 120 Hertz. But as I mentioned, if this is your first venture into VR, you've got nothing to compare it to. The 72 Hertz is not that noticeable, to be honest. The Quest has a built-in battery of 3600 milliamp hours, which is the equivalent of 2 to 3 hours of playtime, which isn't too bad because I really can't see anyone wanting to play for longer than that with this strapped to your face and your eyes all and your motion sickness. 2 to 3 hours is fine. And then lastly, in terms of audio, the Oculus Quest has built-in speakers and uses a system Oculus call spatial audio to kind of give a 3D surround sound effect with the speakers which are built in. Of course, if that isn't for you, because in my personal opinion, it's not that great, it also does have 2 3.5mm jacks on either side, which is compatible with just your regular ass headphones. You could just plug those in instead. So you may be thinking to yourself, Mark, with a completely wireless system, how am I going to make sure I'm not just going to go wandering off and end up in the middle of traffic? So the Oculus Quest uses something called the Guardian system, which you set up when you first put on the headset, which basically uses the 4 external cameras on the outside of the headset to allow you to see where you are in the room and use one of the controllers to kind of spray paint a safe area that you want to play your games in. If at any time during that gameplay you kind of step outside of the Guardian zone, you'll see the wire mesh barriers in front of you. It won't interrupt your game, it will let you know that you're stepping through the safe zone and you're about to punch grandma right in the face. But obviously it's not all about the headset. You control the games with the controllers, and how did Oculus do on that one? They're pretty good. The controllers are actually pretty intuitive, even as I say, for somebody who hasn't been that involved with VR before to just pick them up and start playing games straight away. The layout is going to be pretty intuitive for anyone who's played on a games console before, is used to the button layout of a regular controller. It's pretty easy to get used to. The material of the controllers themselves on the outside here are a nice kind of rubberized texture material so you can get a good grip going. And as well as that, obviously they come with the classic Wii style wrist straps just to make sure that you get a good grip and you're not going to let go of one and it's going to hit grandma in the face. So in terms of precise tracking of your hands and your motions in VR using the controllers emit infrared, which is picked up by the 4 external cameras on the Oculus Quest to give what is, in my opinion, an extremely accurate gameplay experience. So this is obviously an improvement from other systems in the past where you would actually have to buy external sensors and set them up around the room, which is both expensive and a pain in the ass unless you've got the kind of space to just leave them permanently set up in a VR room, you know, right next to the wine cellar, to the left of the scullery.
Jeeves, fetch my headset.
So all of those great features of the controller, I only have one complaint, which is the cover where the batteries go in. It's connected by a magnet. That magnet is very weak, and given you get kind of carried away in a certain game, it's very easy for it to just slip off. So we mentioned the headset has a battery life of 2 to 3 hours, but can you actually wear it for that long? How does it feel? So the headset comes with completely adjustable side and top straps, so it can fit even the chunkiest of heads. I wasn't talking about mine. My head is regular sized. The hats are just a fashion choice. So the material around the eyepiece is kind of a soft fabric material with some silicone stuff behind that, so it's nice and comfortable. And as well, in the box you get an extender for people who wear glasses. But that's not to say the Oculus Quest does a better job than any other VR headset on the market at being the most comfortable thing in the world. Let's face it, you've got something that is somewhat weighty, that is strapped to your face, and if you play it for long periods of time as well, there's nothing saying that the pressure that it causes won't kind of give you a headache. Obviously, long exposure to VR can put strain on the eyes. And lastly, if you're playing something that's kind of active like Beat Saber, you're gonna sweat up a stink in there as well. Luckily, this comes out and you can wash it. In terms of the lenses in the Quest, they do a good job with a field of view of around 90 degrees, so it doesn't look like you're kind of looking through binoculars into a game. But in terms of the overall fit and how good it does at blocking out the world, I can obviously only speak for myself, but I do get a small amount of light leakage that comes in just underneath the nose. It is noticeable if you're looking down, but once you're kind of concentrated in the lenses and the game that you're playing, your brain will automatically block it out. And I also kind of see it as a positive because with the amount you do move around the room, sometimes it's nice to be able to look down and get a good idea of where you are in the room before you hit grandma in the face. So you're thinking, Mark, that all sounds great. You've given me all the information I need to make an informed decision. I'm going to run out and get one right now. Until we come to my least favorite part of the Oculus Quest, and to be honest, it was the main concern I had going into it and the thing that stopped me from buying one at its release date, and it kind of turned out to be true. My main concern was with the App Store. So as I mentioned, I was right in my assumptions. The main thing I was worried about is the App Store isn't super packed with content. I guess obviously developers are still working on things. They could be making things specifically for the Oculus Quest, or they could be taking their previous VR games, which don't quite run it right now, and porting them down to be able to work on the Oculus Quest. But for the time being, as a fairly new product, something that came out in May, the App Store isn't absolutely ram-packed with content. The games that are available, they're not terrible. You've got flagship games in there like Beat Saber and Vader Immortal, which was also amazing, by the way. But also one of the trippiest things I've ever experienced, until you've climbed up a ladder in VR while standing perfectly still in real life. You've never felt motion sickness like that. But as I mentioned, other than that, in terms of availability, there's not a huge amount of games currently in the App Store. They're not AAA titles, so some of them have kind of cartoonish graphics. Not all of them have a lot of replayability. Some of them are just quick story games, and once you've played them once, I guess they're just there for other people to check out when they try out your VR headset. But then we get to my biggest thing, which is the price of those games. For something which do kind of feel like App Store games, they're pretty pricey. I reckon you could pick up a lot of PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 4 titles for pretty much around about the same price. For the £399 that I spent on the Oculus Quest, in the 2 weeks I've had it, I've probably done over £100 in games for 4 or 5 titles. Just to give you an idea. So obviously that complaint applies to first-time VR users as myself, but what if you've built up a PC library of Oculus games in the past? Will you be able to play those? Right now, no. But come November, Oculus is due to release the Oculus Link Beta, which is a special cable which will allow you to link the Oculus Quest up to your gaming PC. One, so that you can access those Oculus games that you've previously bought, and two, it allows the PC to take over some of that processing so you can run those games in their intended graphical quality. Basically, the new cable allows you to turn your Oculus Quest into an Oculus Rift. So I feel like a big part of VR gaming now is the social aspect to it. People come together to laugh at the person wearing it because you look like an idiot. So that social aspect has been easier on devices in the past. Obviously, if you're plugged into a PC, you've got a monitor to display everything that the person wearing the headset is looking at. Things like the PlayStation VR natively is already plugged into a TV so everyone in the room can see. But what do you do with the Oculus Quest? It's all built into this wireless headset. How do you experience that in a social setting? So the Oculus Quest uses Chromecasting, so you can cast that image of what you can see onto a phone with the Oculus app installed, onto a Chromecast device. Previously that was just generation 3, but a recent update has backdated that. And as part of that update, they've now said TVs with Chromecast built in. I did the misplaced quotation marks because my TV has Chromecast built in and it cannot find it. Which is obviously something to consider before buying an Oculus Quest. If you were buying it for that kind of social experience, that you may need to go out and buy another device like a Google Chromecast to plug into your TV so that everyone can share in the experience rather than just crowd around your phone. So this next part won't be applicable to everyone, but just to highlight for content creators, some of the limitations with the Oculus Quest as of right now. Hopefully there'll be some updates in the future to fix these issues. But if you want to talk about live streaming content from the Oculus Quest, Right now, the only built-in live streaming service that's available is to Facebook, which makes sense because they own Oculus. So as of right now, there is no direct streaming from the headset to YouTube or Twitch. That being said, it's not impossible, but what you would need is a very long USB cable, a very long audio cable, a PC, some third-party software, and suddenly you've taken away from all of the aspects that convinced you to buy a completely wireless, untethered headset in the first place. So live streaming may not be on the cards, but you can record content inside the Oculus Quest, which is then stored onto the device, which you can then get off the device using the USB port by plugging it into your PC. So the files you get off aren't too huge because they're 1024 by 1024 resolution, which isn't the biggest resolution for a great image, and as you may have noticed is also square. So if you were just using the footage from the headset itself, you would get these big black bars down the side of the footage. However, if you're pairing it with a real recording of yourself playing next to it, it can nicely fill up the screen. And then lastly, just some things to come on the headset. Firstly, we've already mentioned about the Oculus Link Beta, which is the cable which allows you to plug it into the PC and essentially turn the Quest into a Rift. And one more thing which they've got planned coming for early 2020 is a development which allows the 4 cameras on the front of the headset to, instead of tracking the controllers, will actually pick up on individual finger movements on your hands. So eventually, they're saying you'll be able to play the games without the need for the controllers at all. And that is without any additional hardware. So they're not saying you need to buy special gloves that will be able to track the fingers. Just literally those 4 cameras on the front will be able to pick up all of your finger movements. Creepy. So if you were thinking of picking up an Oculus Quest, I think that's all of the things that you would need to know and some of my thoughts on the features as a first-time VR user. As I mentioned, I think it's a great jumping in point for people who are looking to try out VR for the first time in terms of how easy it is to use, how intuitive it is to set up, how untethered you are by physically tethered cables, and the need for a gaming PC, and most of all, its starting off price. But that's all from me, so if you enjoyed this video or you found it particularly helpful, give it a like rating. If you haven't already, remember to subscribe to the channel. And as always, I shall see you in the next one. Pew.